Gala Connected 2020. Before we start our next sessions, I would like to remind you a few housekeeping notes. All attendees have been muted to cut down on background noise, and you won't be on camera during the session. The presentation today is being recorded, and you will have access to it on Gala's website in a few days. All participants will receive a link. If you have questions to our speaker, please use the button in your control panel marked Q&A. We will try to get as many questions as we have time for at the end of the presentation. You're welcome to chat with other attendees using the chat button in your control panel. Please note you can direct chat to the panelists or to everyone. If you experience technical difficulties, please use your chat box to ask for help, and Gala staff will be with you. Please direct your message to panelists only. And now I have an immense pleasure to introduce to you Henrik Kühnemann, who is the head of production at Global Scandinavia Group, a Scandinavian language services company with strong offering in technical, IT, and marketing translation. Henrik will celebrate his 10th anniversary in the industry this year, and is passionate about digitalization and automation. In his daily role, he manages a team of 13 humans and 3 software robots. Henrik, the audience is yours.
Okay, let's see then. So, welcome to this session. Today, I'm going to talk about 5 automation skills and share some experiences drawn from my last years of automating stuff in mostly product management. As I was finished working on this presentation, I realized that I had material for a full-day workshop, but what I will give you today is the condensed 20-minute version. The main point that I want to make is that process subject matter expertise is the only real prerequisite for automation, but you need to transform this expertise a bit in order to actually make full use of it. And this applies regardless if you do the actual implementation yourself, if you automate yourself, or if you get outside help. And my hope is that you will leave this session with some new perspectives and maybe some inspiration to automate. Before we start, I would like to know a bit more about where you are standing. So I prepared this little poll. Choose whatever alternative you think fits your organization best. Okay. See if I can see the results somewhere.
Hey, Henrik, this is Allison.
Yeah,
I just wanted to give them another moment because I can still see many votes coming in. It looks like we're holding steady, so I'll go ahead and end the polling and share the results.
Okay, cool. Okay, nice. It's a nice spread here. This is going to hopefully be interesting for most of you still. So, jumping into the actual skills then. The first skill that I want to highlight is computational thinking. And computational thinking sounds quite abstract, and I'd say it is, you know, at least taken for itself. But in this, for our purposes, computational thinking means, you know, turning tasks into problems that can be solved by a computer. So what's you know, a problem then? And here a problem would be something like, I have this piece of data, what should I do with it? And the solution then would be to set up criteria to evaluate against and then arrive at an answer. If this, then that. If that, then this. Or, you know, formally, for a given input, evaluate it in relation to some set of criteria, and then advance to the next step depending on the results. And this is actually the nuclear form of computer-based automation. This is really how simple automation can be. Computational thinking, quite bluntly, will help you identify transactions and automate them. But it's also a question of empowering your team with an understanding of processes that have been automated, because working alongside software bots and alongside automated processes can be confusing if you don't really, if it's all a black box. Having some notion of what actually goes on really helps. Also, computational thinking will help you leverage your existing subject matter expertise, making it available for use in automation to automate your processes. Learning this, I mean, you can do this on the university. There are a lot of books about it. I do think it's best to learn by doing, and my suggestion would be to automate stuff and learn by doing. So we will, in what's coming, look at 4 skills where you can develop computational thinking and use computational thinking, where you can see immediate business value. It's about automating email, automating files, automating apps, and then automating APIs. We're cutting over right away to the second skill, which then is automating email. And a simple use case would be monitor a mailbox, evaluate all messages that arrive, and perform certain operations depending on the result of the evaluation. You could package the content, trigger some new operations, anything that's relevant to furthering your process. And if you understand how to automate email, then actually I would say that you actually can automate any other transaction as well, because in the email you have the basic form of digital automation. But when automating email, then the email message is just a container. We don't really care about the fact that the email is an email. What we care about is the actual content. We want the data. That's all we care. So we then get the data out of the container. We get rid of the container, sort the data, and then we package it in a way that is meaningful in our context. Some part of the content is probably used to find out what operations to trigger. Some part of the content is probably used to use as input in the following operations. Some other parts might not be relevant for us, at least not right now. So either we get rid of them or we save them for a rainy day. But this all depends on what is meaningful, what you want to achieve in your processes. And if we were to look at an example that might be, remotely at least closer to reality, and I realized that this might be very hard to read. I didn't really calculate with the fact that this could be watched on a handheld device or on a small screen, because it all looked very real and readable to me when I saw it. But yeah, anyway, this is an email notification for a hypothetical project manager called Jerome. It's a signal to Jerome to say that there's a new job somewhere with files and stuff to do. The fact, though, that it is an email message is not relevant to the process that follows, because we just treat the email as a data container and release the data from its email form to then work with the data to label it and interpret it. And what's relevant here, and it's a question for in your processes, because then we package it in a way that is then again meaningful in the given context. And the given context here is only, there's no, you can't really say anything substantial about what would be meaningful in your given context unless you're in your given context. So, you know, the process subject matter expertise here is what will guide your work. You are the one that actually knows what you want to achieve and why you want it. You know the business, you know the client, you know the process, you know everything. That's based in that knowledge. You will have so you will develop the notion of what is meaningful in the given context. So to summarize, the process is basically breaking the task into smaller parts, determine what parts of the data are useful for what, find patterns in the data, in the way that you're working, and then sketch a plan to go from A to B, you know, to answer the question, I have this piece of data, what should happen to it? And once you're there, you start testing, of course. The main point is process expertise paired with computational thinking will help you do this. Really. Working, going into the third skill then, automating files. Files and file management can be a hassle, but files are not only a problem and a thing of the past. There are a lot of nice opportunities here as well. Of course, you know, automating them means automating file management, of course, moving, copying, deleting, uploading, downloading, renaming, anything. But there's also the aspect of managing and automating the content management, reading the contents of the files, collecting data, updating files, writing your own files. And this is actually where it starts to get interesting. Because in this perspective, files, just like email messages, are containers of data at rest. And while email is thoroughly standardized and well implemented, theoretically, there are an infinite number of different file types. You know, as many as applications or as many as developers, or you know, it's more or less, you know, you can. There's no limit there, and the one who writes the data decides how to do it as well. Also, in files, you know, where email is flat in the sense, well, disregarding attachments, it's flat. It's a string more or less. Files are multi-layered. So take a studio product package, for instance, something that many probably have come into contact with. It's a specific file format, you know, with its own file ending, but in reality, it's a standard zip file that contains other files that contain data, of course, but the data then is then structured in some form of standardized format. So when you enter into the file universe, then you might be forced to work your way through multiple layers of files before you arrive at the data. But this is just a question of finding what standard has been used, because standards are everywhere. Most, if not all, data that is written to file is written in some form of standard format. But when you get that down to the data, then you are the one that knows what to do, what to achieve in your own processes. And this makes the process of automating file management and file content management very similar to working with and automating the management and dealings with email. You break task into smaller parts, determine what's relevant for your context, find the patterns, and then you sketch the path from where you are, and answer the question: what should I do with this piece of data? Yeah. Skill number 4, then, automating apps. Here, an example could be accessing a web portal to get some data, or press a button in the web app. It could be a question of some in and out pivot task that's being performed in a desktop app somewhere. Opening some file or package, saving it in some other format, or accessing some other functionality that has been laid down into the application. Running a QA routine, or do complete some other tasks where the application is a means to your end, and where you, so to speak, leverage the work that someone else has put into automating this specific task already for you in the application. One example from our organization that is on the simple side of things is that we use we have XTRF and MemoQ, and the old with the classical projects tends to be a lot of temporary TMs and TVs, and removing them from the MemoQ server is then a time-consuming and cumbersome task, because you can only do it one at a time, etc. So it's kind of it's mind-numbing to be frank. So what we did, it probably could be done over the SOAP API or something, but what we did instead was just automate the we learned one of our bots to mimic a human to then click in the interface and do this task, and it's on a monthly basis, in the nighttime. Then remove the resources that meet certain criteria. So it was very it didn't take much resources, and the payback is really handsome. But in our perspective, then, the application is in fact a container of data, like the file, like the email, but also a container of functionality. And another thing is that the application makes its content available for users, humans, through an interface. So this means that if you want to automate some app, a web app or a desktop app or something along those lines, your entry point will be the user interface, which is then, in most cases at least, designed to be used by humans. So in an automation use case, the user interface is actually an obstacle to be overcome. And to overcome this obstacle, you do a good thing to observe the users, to see where and what they do with what parts of the applications to achieve these, to access the functionalities, to use the application as a means to an end. Because what humans that use applications tend to find ways to deal with them that are not in the documentation, and you know, not also sometimes not in your documented processes. So observing the users is a good thing. Also map the app, because the interface of the app is what you have to work with, and what you have to navigate around, and what you have to make dance to your music, in order to actually then be able to access the data or the functionality that is contained in this app. Here, use your subject matter expertise. Find out what you want to do in your processes, and then from there on out, you do it again. You break down the task into smaller parts. You determine what's relevant for your context. You find the patterns, and you sketch the way. You formulate the algorithm to actually then get what you want. This then will require a lot of testing, probably, because you will have to align the pieces and go back to the drawing board and back and forth. But the process is basically the same. Skill number 5 that is to be able to automate APIs. And the API, which is short for application programming interface, just like the UI, the user interface, is an interface, and it makes functionality and data available for a user or consumer. But since this interface is not human oriented, most of the familiarity of how stuff works is lost. So working with email files and applications, you have some rudimentary sense of how these things work. And this is from your general experience of using computers and the internet. And this is not the case in APIs. Here you can't check on progress and success in the same way. But even so, there actually are more similarities than one might assume at first. Because if you regard, you know, the application example that I you have a lot of stuff there. You have the user, you have the toolbox, which here represents then the application. You have some functionalities, which are the cogwheels, and you have some data layers, and then you have the robotic arm to control your application. And this can be a bit messy, actually. You can achieve great things automating over the API, but you need to, you know, monitor things and see to it that nothing changes along the way. Working with an API, you have the same set of resources, but here the interface is not an obstacle anymore. The data and functionality is made available in a structured way, and it's many times even documented with this in regard. So even though it's abstract in the sense that there is no graphical UI to navigate after, most of us are not used to reading documentation, you know, which is a skill in itself. Still, it's many times as easy as just making a call and getting a response. You know, I want this piece of data. You get the piece of data. You then evaluate it. You trigger the operations that you want to perform depending on which criteria has been met, and then you do it. You automate this in many times multiple steps. So, to summarize, process expertise is the only real prerequisite for task and process automation. All digital automation share the same form, if you really break it down to the core. And third, automating transactional tasks will give your organization highly scalable skills and improve your maturity, digital maturity. So that was it for today. Thanks for listening, and feel free to get in touch if you want to discuss automation and tools, for instance, which there wasn't time to touch upon today. my contact details are, my screen is there, so it's there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Henrik, for such a fantastic presentation. We got some comments how beautiful the animations were. And I have a few questions for you, actually 4 questions. So let me share my screen.
Okay, I will stop my share here then.
Thank you so much, Henrik.
Yes.
Okay, now wish me luck. Okay. Can you see it? Q&A. Can you see it all, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So we have 4 questions. The first one is from Cornelia. Thank you, Cornelia. It was asked right at the beginning, so you actually clarified it later, but if you have some time to respond to this one. Are we talking about process or Q&A automation?
Well, insofar as the Q&A could be automated as a process, then we're talking about Q&A. That was just an example, to make it more tangible, what I was talking about. But if we're talking about task and process automation, yes.
That's great, thank you. The next question is from Sultan. What did you use for parsing the email content? Did you add this logic in the email client, like Outlook, or you have a processor that pulls the email from the gateway and decides what to do with it after it understood the data?
Okay, yes. Well, that's a question that I would be delighted to devote another 45 minutes to. But to be sure, we've done it with scripting, and we've done it with RPA platforms. In both. So we're using sort of tooling. Of course, this from a principal point of view, this could be done with Outlook. Really, it's just about having some. Since the email is so thoroughly standardized, there are multiple ways of accessing the email data. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. And we have 2 more questions, as well as 3 minutes. 2 questions from Arben. What is the tool that analyzes email data?
Okay, that was more or less the same question.
Yeah.
No, I think in terms of analyzing email data, regardless of if you're using some machine learning algorithm for sentiment analysis, or if you're doing rule-based stuff, which is what we do, because rules still do most of the heavy lifting. We're not in a place where sentiment analysis would be relevant, for instance. Then devising the logic, seeing the email and seeing what would be the next logical steps. That would then you break down the content, and that's a human thing to do. And then you translate this into the types of conditions that I was talking about. But this also, again, a very this could be the topic of another 45 minutes.
Great, thank you so much, Henrik. And the last question from Arben, can you tell us more about the bots that you use?
I won't have time now. I did a presentation on the Nordic Translation Industry Forum last year in November that was focused on our work with robotic process automation. Reach out to me and I will gladly send you the slides from that time. Things have changed a bit, but most of it is still relevant.
That's great. Thank you so much, Henrik, for such a great presentation. If there are any, we have actually 2 more questions, maybe 1 minute. So very quickly, I will read them out. From Kirill, certain cumbersome processes are just too difficult to automate with makeshift automation tools. Where did you guys draw the line between do it yourself and investing into commercial solutions instead? Yeah. And sorry,
that's a very good question.
Yeah.
I mean, that's we're still exploring the lines here. I think that from the perspective of, I mean, this is a dialectical process where implementing professional tools will actually be possible, before, it won't be possible before you have the full grasp of the actual processes that you are working with. And in this sense, finding out where that line goes, it's different for different, I would say it's different for different organizations, but still, I think that having the basic then maturity to do this is relevant for everyone. Yeah.
Thank you, Henrik. Thank you so much. We don't have any more time for more questions, so please direct them to Henrik directly. But now